Addendum.
I'm handing out, she's getting them out.
Because he spit it up too soon. And it goes.
I'm gonna look at Tuesday morning and see if that works. I'll get back to you. I couldn't find my calendar.
So you like her?
They didn't see it. Oh, I see. And then yes.
Avi, are you ready with you too? Yes. Okay. My picture. All right. Well, welcome to the 2024 Spring Congregational Meeting. Thank you to those who are here in person and to those of us joining online for this important work of our church. I'm Kim Zeman, current board president. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm honored to serve with Vice President Melody Vaquero and 7 other dedicated church member trustees, past President Judy Hart, our treasurers, program council leader, Marcia Cedardall. With everyone who is currently on the board, please stand up. Current members and ex officio members. All right. And will everyone who has ever served on the board or served as a treasurer or on the program council, will you please stand up or raise your hand? Ever. Thank you all. We have a room full of leaders. Thank you so much to these people for giving your time to be leaders of our church. Our liberal faith congregation depends on your dedication to our church community. So now we will center ourselves and bring focus to our work today with opening words offered by Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair while Melody lights the chalice.
These opening words are by Libby Stoddard. We gather together, familiar words for many of us. We called not by name, not by special invitation, but we who are here. We who, walking by the door, come in. We who come anonymously burdened or borne by our visions, yearnings, despairs, solitudes. Gather, called here not by law, not by outer compulsion, yet by inward necessity do we come, alone or with others, casual yet intent, drawing in, drawing toward, drawing near. Together. This is the hardest, the most difficult thing. For within and without this building and this room, we irk, frustrate, and anger each other at least as often as we lend or give support. Together is a place. Together is a way. Together is a focus. An acknowledgement that we who gather are seekers and are equal in our seeking.
All right, Julie Anderson is going to lead us in a song.
Singing with you is my prayer. Singing with you is my prayer.
Once again.
Singing with you is my prayer. Being with you is my prayer. Meeting with you is my prayer. Voting with you is my prayer.
Thank you so much, Julie. At our meeting today, we will hear reports and have a chance to ask questions. Our covenant of right relations guides us as we gather here today. As we interact as a community today, please keep that covenant in mind. We'll hear several reports and have time at the end to ask and answer questions. So one item we will be voting on is our approval of the minutes from the winter 2023 congregational meeting as edited by our board secretary, Meg Mehring, from suggestions made at the town halls and from today. I hope you've had a chance to look over those minutes. They're available on the governance page of our website. Are there any other suggested changes or additions? We had some from Mary Summermeyer and some from the last town hall. Were there any other changes to those minutes? Does anyone have YouTube?
Yes.
Is there anything in the chat?
No, there isn't.
Nothing in the chat? Okay.
Summermeyer asks, I haven't been able to access the revised winter 2023 meeting minutes on the church website. Is that version available?
Yes, I'll upload it right now.
Yes, we are uploading it right now.
All right. Seeing no other changes, those will be available, like I said, on the governance page of our website for you to look over before our vote today. Thank you, Meg, and to all who helped to edit the important document for our church governance and history. Right, Jason Slaughter will now share his treasurer's report.
Good late morning. Hey. So I get to go first. Treasury report. I know everybody loves things to talk about money. So can you believe this? I've been in this position for a full year. I mean, I have another year to go. But hey, to say this has been a learning experience is something of an understatement. I appreciate the support and guidance from a lot of members of this church. So thank you so much. This past 12 months, we've had some challenges and we've had some successes. Let me walk you through this year's finances. Let us start with the budget process of 2024. First and foremost, we had an amazing annual giving campaign. As we reported in the fall, we had one of our largest pledging engagements than we've had in many, many years. This was an amazing accomplishment we did as a community. And we just have to ultimately celebrate that, okay? Now the challenge that we face in the budget is the increase of expenses. This is something that is a bit beyond our control in some of these areas. This has affected how we pay our staff and cuts in different areas of ministry in their budget lines. I know this has been a very tough pill to swallow, but it is something that we've had to been able to adapt to. All in all, we have a budget that we can feel proud of, and it shows that we are fiscally responsible and working to become a more sustainable financially as a community. Now, here in the next month, we will have our external financial review. We expect this to go well and hopefully get some helpful insights to make sure we continue to be as financially stable as we have in the past years. Now, throughout the year, we've had some good changes in the financial team. First, we've created the Stewardship Committee that is designed to help create and sustain new ways for us to generate income and to help people find a way to use their time and talents. Judy Kelly has been leading this group, and she has done an amazing and great job, as I would say, with this new venture. Next, I'm going to talk about Love. They've agreed to change their name. They are now the Capital Investment Committee. So we're excited that that's going to be a bit of a change. While this may seem trivial, though, this is actually a big step for this committee. And I also see some great things coming from this group in the next years and years to come. With the recent hiring of the interim minister for our church, the board has made the decision to pay the new minister at full salary. With this decision on the budget to furlough the senior minister for 3 months this year, this did change the compensation line for the minister's salary. Since it was an unexpensive special, we're going to have to pull from reserves to make up some of the difference. How much we pull from reserve is not yet final due to some costs that have not been fully realized yet. We'll have more on this during our fall meeting. Where are we financially as a church with all these changes? We are still stable, but we have critical decisions to make over these next 12 months. As we look forward to the next year, we will be looking at how we develop a more sustainable income streams, and that we hope to help develop more additional sources of revenue. I know as a community, we want to return our staff to full-time statuses. It's something we definitely want, but we have to realize that this is going to take time. The next budget cycle will give us an idea of if we're heading in the right direction. As your treasurer, though, it is my job to make sure that we keep moving forward and help support the teams that make up the church go. I encourage you all, if you have questions or concerns, that you come to me so I can help get you the answer and also listen to any idea you may have. I have a great team that works for me. Or works with me, not for me, with me. I would like to recognize Karen Heford, the Vice Treasurer. She's been a really amazing support for me for this past year. I appreciate Karen for being here. Our amazing staff, Gina and Wendy, who make sure our books are put together correctly. You don't know the work they do. It's really a lot, and I want to thank them very much. I also want to thank Oscar with his passion for math and making sure we are on the right path financially. We're going to miss your time. We are really going to miss you. So that's really my report. Now, I sent you an addendum. Everybody should, if you have one, it is also available online on our governance page. Now, what is this addendum? This is history. This is our history of what we've been doing over these past years to kind of give you an idea of things, how we're going. You will see areas of income, and you'll see areas of expenses. One of the very first things in income, though, I want to point out is the very first one is where we're looking at the pledging over the past this year and last year. Now, this kind of tells a story a little bit. As you can take a look here for 2023, which you will see, which is, I think, the orange line, I believe. Red, okay. that is, so you take a look at January, February, March, it kind of shows the story that it was struggling. But here, for this year, we see an increase in March. Can you tell me, I'll tell you why that happened. We started talking about money. We talked about giving to the church that money. That's what came over here out in the pulpit. And I think that's important that we don't shy away from talking about our finances here at this church. I'm a treasurer. We have people that work to make sure we're sustainable. We're going to continue not being shy and being transparent about our finances. This is important for our church. And so pledging was a thing that we struggled with last year. We're going to continue focusing on that over these next months of the year in our budget. But I think if you take a look at the history here of this addendum, if you take a look at especially where we get income, budget income, where we look at, one thing is you'll take a look and notice, we remember when we talked about our budget last year, we did not want to make an extra ask for the year. That is our attributable donations. You can see where that changed over this last year in our addendum on the back page of that first page. You can see that's different. Now, if you still want to give to the church as donations, we're not going to ask you to do it. We want you to feel compelled to do it. If you feel like you're able to do a donation, that's great. But we don't want to feel like you're always going to be asked all the time for this type of one-time donation. So that's something that you'll see as a difference. Expenses, well, take a look at the addendum expenses. The story of the line here is how expenses go. I gave you an example in our property liability insurance. For 3 years straight, it was $11,000. This year, it went up to $13,250. That is a big chunk, and that's probably going to continue to go up as time goes. How many people have insurance? You realize premiums are going to go up. So this is something we're going to be looking at as things that we pay for go forward. But these are just a little bit of things that I want to point out as the story of our finances. There are lots of other stories that we have here, and I would love to go into every single one detail, but that's for a private conversation you'd like to have with me or one of the staff. We'll make sure you get those answers. But please, don't hesitate. I see a question coming up. So yes, go ahead.
On the back of the first page, you have budgeted attributable donations.
That's right.
What are attributable donations?
Oscar, would you like to help me answer that question?
Sure. So the line for budgeted attributable donations has been one-time donations that the congregation gives to the church. And so for 3 years, for 2020, 2021, no. Depends on if you're counting it as calendar years or budget years. But for 3 consecutive years, we had a pledge campaign in the fall. And then we sent out a letter saying, would you be willing to give, in addition to your pledge, some amount of money to the church? Those were labeled as attributable donations. We very intentionally, this last fall, said we were not going to do that. We were going to ask people to increase their pledge, but we were not going to ask for a donation in addition to your pledge in October and December. So that's where you see that attributable donation line fall off in 2024. We were hoping to see pledging go up in the same amount that attributable donations went down. Candidly, we did not see that happen. One of the results of that is that we had to cut our budget significantly last fall. So that's where the cuts in staff hours come from. That's where the furlough of my position comes from. Does that answer your question?
Great question. Thank you for asking. But that is my report. I appreciate everyone. And if you do have more questions, feel free. I'm not going to stop. Go ahead.
I've always been concerned for years and stated it many times, probably every year, that we rely too much on rent to help make our budget. Losing Blue Stem Montessori is going to be a major hit because they paid how much in rent? $25,000
approximately.
$25,000.
$25,000. We're not going to get close to that, I don't believe, with the child care program coming in. So as you mentioned, we need to come up with ways to increase how much money the church gets, but hopefully, again, that will spur people to realize that really it's the members that support the church that need to increase their pledges. We can't rely on rent. Ideally, in my opinion, rent should be going to some other, maybe a percentage of the rent could go to budget. The rest should be going to, I don't know what, but we rely too much on rent for too many years.
Harry, you make a great point there, and I want to say here in that response is that our Board of Trustees is responsible for the financial stability of our church and how we do things. Who does the Board of Trustees, who are their bosses? Our community, our congregation. Please talk to your Board of Trustees. They have blue ribbons. We all have blue ribbons. Go ahead and talk to us. If you have ideas, we want to have your ideas. That's a great point, Harry, and we would love to hear your ideas, talk about and implement things. We're not afraid of ideas. So please don't hesitate to, if you have a thought, if you have a concern, please talk to one of us.
To just put all of this in context, though, so rental income is $25,000. That is 5% of the congregational budget. 85% of the congregational budget comes from congregational giving. So just to name that's the relative size.
Like I said, he's good at math. All right, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jason. Allison will come up and share about our voting process.
I apologize, I'm not wearing my name tag, but I think it would have just gone camouflaged with my shirt today. My name is Allison Starr. My pronouns are she, they, ella, if you're speaking about me in Spanish. And I am charged with explaining our voting. I'm so excited. Okay. So after this spring 2024 congregational meeting, we will be voting on 3 items. We will vote on whether to approve the winter 2023 congregational meeting minutes, including any edits made at the town hall meetings and this meeting. We will be electing 3 people to serve on the Board of Trustees. We are also voting on the nominations for Share the Plate. We do need a quorum. Our bylaws state that 20% of the membership will constitute a quorum. This will be counted by the number of votes received. Because of our multi-platform format, not everyone will be in the sanctuary. To give everyone a voice, we will be voting online again, as we have done for the past several congregational meetings. Immediately following this meeting, the congregational meeting, all members will receive an email from the church office with a link to a Google form ballot. We know this, right? We've done this several times. Okay. It is also linked on the governance page of our website. There will be instructions on the Google form ballot on how to vote. Please follow these instructions closely. Once you are done with your voting, you will click the Submit button and it will go to the church office for counting. For those who do not have electronic means of voting or who do not wish to vote online, we do have the option of a paper ballot. You will have 48 hours after the email to complete your voting. In order to be counted, your virtual or paper ballot must be received by the church office by Tuesday, June 4th at 11:30 a.m. Results will go out in the e-blast, the Friday e-blast on June 7th. Any questions about voting? Excellent.
Thank you so much, Allison. Now, Joanne Lanning is here to tell us about the nominations committee and the candidates for Board of Trustees. Joanne.
chair of the nominations committee. I represent the committee that was elected by this congregation to recruit candidates for various church leadership positions. I would like to thank everyone in the congregation for thoughtfully considering how to serve when we asked you. I appreciate those of you who said, not at this time, we'll be back. And I really appreciate those of you who answered yes enthusiastically. I also want to thank the rest of the nominations committee, and if you'll stand as I read your name: Shelley Fowler, Judy Hart, Emily Shatil, maybe not with us here, Elle Stratman. Your helpful ideas and cooperation have made being the chair of this committee so comfortable. Thank you. Each Board of Trustees candidate is a longtime member of this church who has served on many committees and held multiple positions. We are all fortunate that they have been willing to serve the church again. They are Sue Goebel, if you'll stand please, Sue, and Leslie Ryan, and Michael Stratman. Please give them your kind consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne, and many thanks to the nominations committee members who have worked hard to find candidates for these positions. So the board consists of 12 people. There are 9 elected members of the board, plus ex officio members, the treasurer, minister, immediate past president, and program council chair. We are so grateful for the time and talent shared by those who are currently on the Board of Trustees, those whose terms are ending, and our new Board of Trustees candidates. As Joanne shared, we will vote for 3 candidates, and so with only 3 positions open and 3 candidates, this is an uncontested election. 3 members will be leaving the board: Meg Marion, Joan Ellen Polzine, and me. I thank you for your service on the board. Elle Stratman will also be stepping down from the board after filling in for Dorothy Ramsey, who resigned from the board this year due to personal reasons. There is 1 more year left in Dorothy's term. Our bylaws state in section 6.4 vacancies, the board may appoint any church member who is qualified as defined in section 4.6 to fill a vacancy in its membership. The appointed trustee will hold the office until the term they are filling has ended. The board will take action to fill any vacancy in a reasonable time frame. At our May meeting, the Board of Trustees voted to appoint Judy Hart to fulfill the remaining year of Dorothy's term. So we thank you all for your leadership. Judy Hart will now share information about Share the Plate.
Hi. Every year our church selects 10 nonprofit organizations in Lincoln to be our Share the Plate recipients. We have them come to church and share about their organizations, then collect money for those nonprofits. We also try to have an ongoing partnership with those organizations, like Oscar spoke about in his sermon today. Thank you. In no particular order, here are the organizations that have been nominated to be recipients of Share the Plate for the 24-25 church year. Morning Hope Grief Center, Hope Village, Planned Parenthood, Malone Center, ACLU Nebraska, Ark of Lincoln, Brave Bee Child Advocacy Center, Bridges to Hope, Center for Legal Immigration Assistance, also known as CLIA, Echo Collective, Lincoln Literacy, Willie's Underwear Project, Some of Us for All of Us, Center for People, Community Crops, Food Bank of Lincoln, Indian Center, Nebraskans for Alternatives to Justice, Asian Community and Cultural Center, League of Women Voters, the Bay, Little Free Pantry at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln, Out Nebraska, NAACP Lincoln Branch, and Baby and Me. At our congregational meeting, the 10 organizations that receive the most votes will be our Share the Plate recipients for the church year. A link listed all of the Share the Plate nominees is on, a link listing all of the Share the Plate nominees is on our church website under the governance section if you'd like to review these. We appreciate all the nominations provided by our church members. This list truly highlights our engagement with our community. So thank you.
We have a question about Share the Plate. Yes.
Yeah, question about Share the Plate. So 10 recipients, and
Yes.
that's one collection for the month?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. This probably is an appropriate time, but I'd like to just throw out the idea that we increase it to 12 at some point in the future. If it's only one collection per month, that's still, I know we've talked about the other top X 4 or 5, we still try to do something to maybe help those groups out. But I mean, that's how do you pick out of 24, 10?
It's a hard choice.
That's
Yes.
tough. I mean, it's like just draw them out of the hat almost. But there's some new ones there that I'd love to see get funded, and there's some previous ones there that always get funded. And I know it's a democratic process, but I dropped a hint, and I'll leave it at that.
Dean has something to add.
Sorry, I was just going to add, Harry, that we skip 1 month in the summer generally because our attendance is so low, but we also skip December because of Stranger Shower Fire. And often if there's a high visibility group that does not get elected, we tend to try to include them like we did for Fresh Start this December last.
Thank you. All right, Peg is going to come up and announce our Unsung UU Award.
I can't tell you how much of a pleasure this is. This is kind of the fun stuff, you know. This year's Unsung Unitarian was nominated because they show up. They are a prime example of someone who for many years has shared their time, talent, and treasures. Our Unsung Unitarian is a former member of the nomination committee, has donations and bids to support the church annual auction, often gives rides to members who needs one. This person also has volunteered in the UCL Pride booth, is a member of the Pulpit Decoration Group, is an office dazzler, sings in the choir, and helps run the bookstore. And I can tell you, this morning, we were so excited that she was here, and then she decided she was going to leave so she could give somebody a ride home. And so there was a little bit of wrangling in the hallway, and then we were able to get Carol Kendrick to stay. I think it's wildly appropriate that that our Unsung Unitarian, who does such a lovely job of giving people rides, gets a good parking spot.
Well, it is a very well-deserved award. Congratulations, Carol. All right. And Marcia Cedardahl will now come up for a program council report.
Well, I don't know. That's kind of a hard act to follow. I am Marcia Cedardahl. My pronouns are she and her. This is my first report as the program council chair, so I decided to share my time by sharing this quote. It starts when you say we and know who you mean, and each day you mean one more. That's from Marg Piercy from the Low Road. It's part of Beloved Conversations. You know, I thought about how I was going to start this report, and after much deliberation, I decided to look through our governance documents to help me explain what the Program Council does and what we have accomplished this year. So, this is what I have the privilege of sharing with you today. The revised Program Council policy states, the purpose and information of the Program Council is to address the operational issues of the church. The Program Council shall be comprised of 6 liaisons, 2 clusters of committees, activity groups, and task organizers with similar functions. The Program Council shall be led by the Program Council Chair, whose selection is set forth in the church bylaws. Under stewardship, the policy also states, whether through time, talent, or treasure, this is going to be a hard paragraph for me, or more than one of these. Oh, shoot. Each of us contributes to the common good as our personal circumstances allow. The Program Council remains committed to the church community as fully possible, even in times of difficulty, acknowledging that together we are stronger and heal more fully. That sentence is more meaningful to me. Shoot, does anybody have a Kleenex? Those of you who know me know that I cry at the drop of a hat, so I was hoping I could get through this without tears, but the last sentence is even more meaningful to me, as you have all supported me and helped me in my healing since the death of my beloved Ray in January. Whew, yeah. The Program Council's, the work is done by 6 clusters led by great cluster liaisons. This year, I've had the pleasure of working with the following leaders. And if you're in the room, would you please stand up? Abby Lindbergh McDowell, Youth in Action Chair. Barbara Pearson, Facilities Cluster. Patty Cuevas, Outreach Cluster. And thank you, Patty, so much for your service. And she is going off the Program Council and being replaced by Angie Fass. So thank you, Angie. Let's see, Judy Kelly, Adult Program Chair. Kathy Disney, Congregation Chair. Bob Hawk, Sunday Services Cluster, who is replacing Jamie Radcliffe. Thank you so much, Jamie, for all of your service. And so thank all of you so very much. Today I'm representing these 6 cluster leaders and the members and leaders of the committees and task force. So I am so very proud of all the accomplishments. And I tried to kind of narrow them down because as I wrote this, I realized I got a little probably overboard. So I'm just hitting the highlights here. Staff were invited to attend and participate in our monthly Program Council meetings. The bylaws were changed after discussion and participation with the bylaws task force to reflect that much of the Program Council activity has been moved out of bylaws to the revised policy for the Program Council. The Odo, Missouri representatives returned to Lincoln in September, and the Program Council assisted. with hosting and providing a meal for them. The annual giving campaign began in early fall and was changed to reflect stewardship. And I included the quote in that because I think it's so important. Stewardship is the value that embodies our responsibility to care for the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. Stewardship is, excuse me, my tears get in the way here, is not just about financial support, but also includes how we invest our time and talent in strengthening our church. We held a Zoom meeting with the First UU Church in Omaha on November 8th, where they shared information on how they changed from a program council to a ministry team council type of governance. The Second Chance auction in November was a huge success and raised well beyond the initial $3,000 that was hoped to happen. So many, many thanks to Karen Heifer and Barbara Pearson again, who co-chaired this delightful event, as well as all of those who contributed. The program council decided that each cluster would adopt a month where they would do various activities throughout the church that month, such as host coffee, have a table after church out in the sanctuary, or in the hall, hold an activity to increase involvement and understanding of the program council. The outreach committee held the winter lecture series via Zoom, pretty appropriate title. The 2024 lecture series was on global democracy and the evident rise of various strongmen. The online auction held this spring was a great success. Over $12,000 was raised. Again, many thanks to Barbara and Karen for all your hard work as co-chairs. And the program council and the board of trustees held a joint meeting in April to clarify how the two groups work together to increase congregational knowledge. Feedback was really positive, with encouragement giving to all the program council clusters and their members to attend the board retreat, because developing relationships is so important to make everything work well and provide success. The program council was asked to take the lead on the opening of the time capsule that was placed 25 years ago. This scheduled and happened on May 26th after the service, and you've probably seen out in the hall that there is a lot of information from the time capsule on the table. There's so many more accomplishments I could mention. Let me finish by saying how proud I am to represent this talented group. Phew. And be a part of this congregation. I would like to close with this quote from the current Soul Matters. Why be a star when you can be a constellation? So thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcia. What you do here is so important, and we appreciate you so much. Okay. All right. My president's report. It's been quite the year. So the cycles of the season show us that change is part of life, and our church community has experienced so many changes in the past few years. The 2023 church year brought more transformation as we had to pivot our thinking and adapt to many challenges and changes. So our church bylaws state that the purpose of the Board of Trustees is to provide governance as representatives of the congregation. Boards are responsible for considering the big picture of the organization: policies, long-range planning, bylaws and budget, vision and mission. And as a board, we are committed to love, community, and growth. We support and love our church community through the challenging financial decisions we make, the thoughtful policy work we do, and guiding the church throughout the changes that life brings. So here are a few highlights from our church year. Last summer, we began the year with new leaders on the board and the program council. The board approved updates to the finance handbook and personnel handbook. Our church sent delegates to the UUA General Assembly, both in person in Pittsburgh and virtually. We celebrated the return of Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair and his family and celebrated our congregation with a picnic potluck in July at Antelope Park. The amazing volunteers on the bylaws task force started meeting twice a month because they had so much work that they were doing. A team was established to explore revisions to our vision and mission. The board voted to approve a much overdue financial review. The stewardship ministry team started meeting to plan the annual giving campaign and also to research other year-round stewardship opportunities. The board budget discussions began while the program council and committees began work on their budget requests. And at the summer board retreat, leaders developed 4 priorities for the church year: aligning staff and ministerial salaries with the UUA suggested midpoint guidelines, implementing a funding plan for building and ground sustainability, increasing involvement and engagement across all parts of the congregation, and strengthening our volunteer leadership. The last one was expanding and collaborating efforts on human rights advocacy, including but not limited to justice in action, legislative advocacy, social movements that align with our denominational values. In the fall, the annual giving campaign had its kickoff with a potluck. The bylaws review task force continued to meet and do revision work, as well as planning and presenting the revised bylaws to the congregation. Our new heat pump was installed. The vision and mission team continued to plan and discuss, and our 501c3 status went into effect. We met with church leaders from the Omaha UU churches and hope to continue with that partnership. The executive committee, comprised of the board president, vice president, treasurer, vice treasurer, and program council chair and minister, met multiple times in the fall to work on the budget. The second chance auction was a huge success, thanks to Karen and Barbara. The revised bylaws were approved at the winter congregational meeting. The 2024 budget was also approved. As we've talked so much before, while pledging amounts were high, expenses were higher, and income was down in other areas. Difficult decisions were made to cut funding for programming, reduce staff hours, and furlough our minister for 3 months in 2024. Salaries were raised to the UUA suggested midpoint, but were budgeted at the changed work hours. This past winter, board members and the LUF Committee, now known as the Capital Investment Committee, held meetings to collaborate about LUF and board relations and the LUF board agreement. The stewardship ministry continued meeting to develop ideas for creating a broader income base. A winter board retreat was held where we deepened our connections as church leaders and examined changes in church demographics, discussed our priorities for the remaining church year. A review of the 2023 finances showed that we ended the 2023 church year with a deficit. This has no connection to the budget that we passed in December for the 2024 year. A deficit is not a debt. It means that we earned less money than we expected last year. For our 2023 budget year, our expenses were right on target for what we budgeted, but our income was considerably lower than expected. Our rental money and money from fundraisers exceeded expectations, but our pledge repayment rate was only 85%. Our bank account is still healthy. In March, the board voted to accept the deficit with the understanding that changes need to be made, including how pledging is carried out, and our bank balance needs to be carefully monitored. Now in the spring, more changes. Church leaders and long-term repair and replace stakeholders met to develop a plan for building and ground sustainability. The committee, formerly known as LUF, voted to change its name to the Capital Investment Committee, and collaboration has continued between the Capital Investment Committee and board members. Our minister, Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair, announced that he had accepted an offer at the Unitarian in St. Paul, Minnesota, and was selected to be their next settled minister. We are so happy for him, but also so sad to see him leave. Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair was gone during the month of April because of our budget decisions of being furloughed. An interim search team was approved by the board, and they began the work to develop our church's profile on the minister search system. In April, listening sessions were held to answer questions and listen to concerns as we proceeded with the interim minister search process. The Board of Trustees and Program Council held a forum in April to discuss what works well with our current governance model and how we can make it even better. Our auction was a huge success, thanks to Karen Hafer and Barbara Pearson and all the amazing people who donated and bid on items. The interim minister search team worked hard to check references for and interview the 4 highly qualified candidates who applied for our position. Blue Stem Montessori will be leaving UCL in June, but we have signed a contract for a preschool daycare to rent our building. And in May, Reverend A.J. Galazin accepted our offer to be the next interim minister at UCL starting on August 1st. In spite of our financial challenges, our church remains an incredibly vital place. Look at all that we have accomplished this year. Look at the calendar, where it was so hard to find a date to schedule a party for Oscar, Stacy, and Ailish. Look at the work of the committees, the joy of the children and youth in RGL, the wonderful music in our services, and our partnership with the community. We are all here because we care about our church, and I'm so grateful for your commitment to show up. I want to send a thank you to everyone who has participated in the town halls and congregational meetings this year, and all who will be voting. Being part of this democratic process is one of the many ways our members show up to support and care for our church community. I also want to say thank you to our minister, Reverend Dr. Oscar Sinclair, for all you have done with us in the past 7 years. You will be greatly missed, and we wish you well in the next seasons of your life. I also send my thanks to our amazing staff, our administrative director, Jean Helms, our religious growth and learning director, Chelsea Krafka, our music director, Bob Fusen, our administrative associate, Wendy Hesterman, and our choir director, Julie Anderson. We greatly value the work that you do for our church. I am so grateful to all the leaders at UCL. Much time, energy, and dedication goes into volunteering for leadership positions. Thank you to the committee members and chairs, the program council liaisons, our program council chair, Marcia. Your work is crucial. And while I may be the voice of the board, the governance work is done by all the members of the board. Thank you all. In June, we start a new season. We welcome new members to the Board of Trustees and will be electing new officers at our June meeting. We'll be saying goodbye to Oscar and welcoming a new interim minister. The seasons to come will surely bring even more change, but we are about the work of transforming ourselves and the world together through love. I want to encourage all of you to consider volunteering more and becoming leaders at our church. Our current mission states, "We are people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands who show up." What would happen if we internalize that mission? If we each said, "I am a person with an open mind, loving heart, and helping hands, and I show up." When we say we show up, it's sometimes easy to think, oh, somebody else will probably go to that event. Somebody else will probably volunteer for that. But taking on the mission as our own and saying, I show up, making that personal commitment is how we come together as a community to do the work of the church together. It's through all of us personally committing our treasure, time, and talent, personally committing to show up for this church that our community thrives. I am so grateful to have served as your Board of Trustees president, even through the challenging church year. As an introvert who has social anxiety and a fear of public speaking, I have to say this role has helped me grow so much this year as a leader and as a person. Thank you so much for that opportunity. Treasurer's report.
So the first thing I'll say is that there are written reports from myself and the rest of the staff on the church website. If you go to unitarianlincoln.org/governance, you can see the whole 7-page long report that I wrote along with reports from the rest of the staff. I am not going to read through that report because I'd like to have some time for Q&A at the end if there's any questions, and that would take too long. But briefly, what's in there is in September, at the September board meeting, my report to the board said that there are 6 areas of congregational life that I think will be major projects in the coming year. Briefly, those were worship, membership, bylaws, stewardship, justice in action, and our mission and vision. So some of those we've already heard about in this meeting, but just to go through them briefly and where they ended up. We spent some time this year rethinking worship. We did a big class workshop on how to organize and lead worship in the fall that was pretty well attended. You've heard quite a few services that came out of that. I hope there are more. Shelley, I'm looking at you. We also have a new worship associates chair in Kathy Disney, which is really exciting to see where we'll go, where you'll go in the coming months with that. As far as membership, we've actually added more members in the last 6 months than basically any other time during my ministry here. That was caused by a couple things. One was a change at the UUA level that took us a couple years to apply here. Once upon a day, the Unitarian Universalist Association charged dues to individual congregations based on how many members you reported. That is no longer the case. They made that change a couple years ago. So there is no longer a pressure from the UUA to say, the fewer members you report, the less you have to pay us. Right? That was a real thing for many years. So changing that allowed us then to change our bylaws and free up sort of the definition of membership to reflect the broad welcome that we really say is part of who we are. That bylaws revision was the third big thing, right? Major work from the year, passing bylaws revisions in December. You've heard about that from a couple different people. Stewardship and budget were a big focus in the first half of this year. The good news here is that we created a sustainable budget, right? One that's not dependent on emergency measures, with some new ideas for stewardship going forward. The hard news about that is that it required us to rethink staffing, including cutting hours and furloughing the minister. Again, you've heard more about that, and it's in your written reports as well. The fifth thing was Justice in Action. So I spent the last year as one of the 2 co-presidents of Justice in Action, which is a interfaith network that we helped found as this church. That's involved everything from meetings where we had hundreds of Unitarians turn out, or 167 Unitarians turn out, to a somewhat public disagreement with the county attorney. In Justice in Action strategy sessions, we've said, well, we're really glad Oscar's moving on because Mr. Condon can say, well, the new guy isn't, like, it's not that Sinclair. Sure. Anyway, that'll be fun for the next person. The last thing that I thought we were going to work on, and we did in fact do some work on this year, is redefining our mission and vision. We had a service about that you may remember in December, where we were really starting to look at what I was talking about in the service this morning. What is the big dream for the next 3 to 5 years of this congregation? When it became clear that I was going to be leaving Lincoln at the end of the year, we put that on pause, because that's really work that you need to do with your new interim and with your new called minister. So that's this year. Let's talk a little bit about the transition. I was not in full search this year. I think that's really important to say. Candidly, the measure was, what are the congregations that I will regret not having put my name in for? And in the end, that was one congregation, and that was the congregation that chose to ask me to come candidate. So on March 31st, I announced that I had accepted an offer to candidate in St. Paul. That congregation voted on April 21st. I will start there on August 1st. So June 30th will be my last Sunday here in Lincoln. I am really excited that AJ Galazan is coming here. He's been the interim in Ames for the last 2 years, Ames, Iowa. So we've been in some of the same meetings of mid-size ministers. Not that we're mid-size, actually he's quite tall, but ministers in the Midwest serving mid-size congregations. There we go. And he's been a wise, compassionate, thoughtful presence in all of those meetings. It is practice in both the Unitarian Universalist denomination and in my professional association that outgoing ministers do not have a whole lot of contact with the congregations that they leave after they've left. Right? So for about 2 years, it's really no contact as a minister with the congregation. Now, the specifics of that are a thing that I will work out with Reverend H.A. We'll have an actual written covenant about what that looks like. But I want to be clear that that's part of this. And the reason for that, and the reason for interim ministry generally, some space for the congregation and the new ministry to dream up what they're going to do, to not be defined in reaction to the outgoing minister. Now, some of that's hard, like it's always aspirational. I have been here 7 years. All 7 of those years have been in the very long shadow of Charles Stephen. Which is fine, that's the way it goes. But I know I benefited from this, right? That intentional time to allow a new minister and a congregation to define what they will be together. And so I want to extend the same care for that next ministry that Fritz Hudson, that Gretchen Woods extended to me. That means that the next few weeks are a time for intentional goodbyes. I think, God, I had 4 dinners and 2 lunches and 1 coffee this past week with people in Lincoln who we want to have that time with. If you have not reached out to me and you want to, do it now, because there are 25 days left-ish. I've also heard from many of you, both like good things and bad things, because that's also part of this, right? The task of any goodbye is to say, what are the things that we appreciated about each other? What are the things that drove us absolutely insane about each other? And how do we close out the relationship and say goodbye well? So that's the project of this month. And we'll keep having those conversations right up to June 30th, I assume. Yeah, so part of, and yeah, that's what I've said here. So that's the work of the next 3 weeks. Say goodbye well. I'm going to defer the rest of my time if there are any questions from anyone. We've got a little bit of time here at the end. There's a question from Alan.
I don't know, can I address the question to anyone? Yeah, I don't know if this is the appropriate time. The last church bulletin said that Chelsea was taking an additional position. And I don't know, so this is a question either about her or for her. What is that position? Is it paid? And does that bring her back up to her former salary level?
So I'll say before going to Chelsea, we have multiple staff members, now including Chelsea, that have work outside of this church in order to supplement the income that they get from this church. So that is a reality that we live with. But Chelsea.
Yes, I'm the Mid-America Regional Administrator. So doing that work in addition to this work, nothing is changing with the amount of hours that I'm doing here, just reshifting my ability to be better about delegating and working with the RGL committee. But yeah, I will be working with what is the Mid-America region. And so very different work than being a religious education director. So I'm doing a lot more data entry and newsletters and that kind of thing. Doing all right. Yes.
Yeah, oh, you can clap. That's an amazing opportunity for Chelsea, and we should be so proud of her to have someone from our church working with Mid-America UUA. So.
So Oscar, I know you've got a lot of extra interview questions. I'm just curious, over these 7 years, what would you say that you've grown as a minister here? What was the one thing that you thought you didn't have but now you've grown into?
Can you repeat the question?
What have I grown into in these 7 years? I preached about this. This was the first Sunday in May. I came here having worked in congregations for a little while, it is a long half a dozen years of training to become a minister, and then time in congregations before that. So I came here not unformed, but the number that I will hold with me from this is 86 new members and 53 memorials. The sermon in May was about the experience of walking past the memorial tree every day, walking from my office to the sanctuary and back, and looking at those names. And so I would say that one of the things that has become much deeper for me is understanding what it means to be in community over time, and what it is to look around this room and see all of the chairs that look empty, but you know that they're not. Because all of those people are still in this room. Like Amy Berkey is absolutely in this room. And so I think that's a piece that I knew intellectually, and I don't think I don't think it sunk into my bones until about the 30th or 40th memorial service.
So if one happens to be traveling through St. Paul on a Sunday, can we pass through the church's doors?
Yes, absolutely. So look, so one of the really interesting things is I actually thought when I started this that these guidelines were a little bit more well-defined. They're actually not. They're basically put together a covenant with the interim, and I haven't done that yet, so I don't know what the hard and fast rules are going to be. But broadly, the idea behind the covenant is that the outgoing minister should not ever put themselves in a position where they are perceived as or treated as or even hint at being a minister serving the congregation that you left. That's the reason for everything else. So, yeah, if you come to St. Paul and visit, like I would love to see you. I will very much not ask how things are going at the Lincoln Church. Like, that's where the line is, if that makes sense. Like, if we run into each other at General Assembly, I will love to see you. I will ask about your family. I will not ask about how the bylaws are changing at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. So we're still working this out, and like, the internet changes everything, because even the hard and fast guidelines that were written, I think we did this 3 years ago as a ministers association, 5 years ago now. And then we had this pandemic thing and everything's online, and we've never figured out what that means for all of this. The best I can tell you is that I will not serve as in a ministerial function for this church. And I probably will not seek out interaction. I will not seek out interactions with members of this church for a couple years. If we bump into each other, great. Does that make sense?
Hello?
Put it up by your mouth.
Not a question, but I just want to thank you for making us all proud, for being the public face of the Unitarian Church for the Nehemiah Project. I have sometimes been surprised at the people who I did not know at all, and yet we found out that we were both at St. Mark's that night.
Yeah.
You've done us proud. Thank you.
Any more questions? No? As we do with Ailish, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I'll also just end with deep, deep thanks, both to the staff team here that I've worked with, to the board, all of the people who have served on the board over the last 7 years, the program council, all of the program council chairs, Marcia, Karen, Trey, all of the board presidents. I almost put every board president in my report, but you know who you are. We have spent a lot of time, especially to Kim. This was a crappy year to pull the straw of being board president, and I've just been so in awe so often at the compassion and kindness that you've approached this work. So, thank you.
Well, now that you've made me cry for my closing words. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Our closing words are from Heather Janules. From the power of our memory and history, with high hopes for the days that lie ahead, we gathered to craft the destiny we share with one another. We gathered with faith in the practice of democracy. We gathered with hearts and minds open to the wisdom in every voice among us. In our gathering, may we dream and design a bold future. May we bring our best selves to this service, and may we dream these dreams and do this work with love. Go now and take this work into the world. Go in peace.